I would just like to add a few things to the list because I think there are other important issues and I didn't want to spend the time previously, but I think these are important items to discuss. One is bias, another is the conservatism of societies, cost meetings, and I'll talk about reprints, and I have one more item. Each of these is very short. First, about bias. Now, bias is very interesting. What happens in the field is that all of a sudden there's an idea and then there'll be a lot of papers on that subject. So for example, stochastic approximation came out, Robbins-Monroe, and then all of a sudden there were 20 papers and so on. Optimal design, there were some fundamental papers, and then there was a flood of papers in optimal design. Ranking and selection, you can go on and on. Now, one of the things that happened when I was editor was there is this flood, and then people start saying, well, my God, you can't have another optimal design paper, and so on. And so what happens is the editorial boards say, you know, we've had it on optimal design, no more optimal design. And so that creates a problem for the individuals, especially for young people. And I would like to emphasize, I think publications is extremely important for people getting started. If we reject papers from the new PhDs, then we've created a tremendous depression in the way they behave, and we don't want to lose that crowd. It's very, very important that we publish papers by young people. I think this bias was one of the things that generated a lot of specific journals. I don't know how to handle the problem of bias, but I've called it bias. I don't know that that's the right word, but one has to recognize this. And now, if you look in the journal, every journal is a journal of bootstrapping or resampling methods. It will die in another 3 years. There'll be something else. But the point is, we have to be careful in how we deal with this. I agree with Friedrich completely. I think it's up to you, every individual here who feels strongly about what's happening, to change the conservatism of the societies. The Institute of Mathematical Statistics is rich. There is no problem in publishing more pages. The problem is a general conservatism on the part of editors. An editor cannot ask to double the number of pages, but there is no reason why we don't increase. I think that's important, and I think the only way to handle that is to fight it. If you talk about money, the cost of a meeting far exceeds the cost of all the journals I subscribe to. I mean, if I take the total cost of Biometrica, RSS, Annals, JAZA, etc., compare that with the cost of one meeting. I've forgotten what these things cost now, but the cost of meetings is much higher than all the journals together. So I think that we should try to publish more from the societies and not worry about that. I would like to urge that proceedings of meetings not go to places like North Holland and Elsevier and so on. They will just charge a phenomenal amount of money for the proceedings, and they're in effect burial grounds for any papers. You can, even the most prestigious symposium, the Berkeley Symposium, you cannot buy a copy of Volume 1. It no longer exists. And that's one of the problems with proceedings. Try to get a proceedings of some of the older meetings and you'll have trouble. Reprints is a ticklish problem. No publication can pull out 25 reprints. It's very costly. Very costly for them to do. They have to have a special run. They have to put it aside. They have to have somebody handling 25 reprints. A much simpler solution is to take one issue and just cut it up and Xerox 25 copies. And that can be done at a departmental level, or if you're in areas where Xeroxing is a problem, we have to have some of the main societies, like the Institute of Mathematical Statistics, provide a service of that type. That's really what we need. We need a central office that will provide reprints at cheap cost. And okay, now the other point is, Enya's comment was an interesting one to me. Namely, and I agree with him, namely that commercial versus society is a spectrum, and there's commercial and society, and there are all kinds of in-between convex combinations. But what I would like to urge is that instead of the Bernoulli Society going with North Holland, why doesn't the Bernoulli Society just ask another society that's better set up for publication to do it? For example, the American Math Society, for a cost, will publish anything you want. So will Siam. But the difference is that then the Bernoulli Society maintains control. According to me, the key issues is who chooses the editor and who sets the price. And if the Bernoulli Society chooses the editor and sets the price, then I have no problem going to North Holland. But if they lose that control, then it seems to me you've given up the main part of what the journal is all about. So I would say farm it out to Siam. A lot of societies have set up publication offices. They'll do it, they'll put it out on tech. They now have a whole stream of people to do that. The American Math Society, and I am sure other countries have a similar thing. So I would like to urge that when societies when the smaller societies can't maintain a big publication office, that they farm it out to somebody who will not ask for control of those two issues. I think that you've raised an important point on geography, and I fully concur. And it seems to me that somehow we really need to have more cooperation in terms of some of the geographical outlets. I think I've used up all the items I have. But I'd like to leave with one thought. Each of you has a lot of control if you write letters. I urge you to write letters about the conservatism of societies, urging societies to become more liberal, to publish more, and to expand their services. And a simple example is the current index of statistics. I think as a result of this, all we should do is, if you write a letter to Bruce Trumbo, making the suggestions that Professor Rao made, I think that there's no reason why he won't try to implement this. But let me also say about the current index, there is now a computer file called Math File. We have everything in that. You can now go to a computer and you can put in keywords and phrases and get everything, all the articles written on that subject. It's a very handy search mechanism, and Bruce Trumbo is very liberal on that. I am very sorry that societies were conservative with proceedings. There is no reason why societies cannot put out all the proceedings from all these meetings. They start, everybody who's an editor of a series, what they start is they start talking about quality. And as soon as they start talking about quality, they pick out one paper that's not particularly great, and then they don't want to publish it. But we should urge them to publish proceedings.